So, unless you've been living under a rock, because it's finally getting the publicity that it actually deserves, Doctor Who finally came back today after 15 months, I think, of being off air or something. And it was just very, very good. Very good. I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. It was a very solid, like, story structure, and it had very solid character development, and it was very good, like, just for its function as a pilot. It wasn't trying to jump the shark, it wasn't trying to be too epic, it just, like, worked as setting up, this is how the show works, so we're going to go from here. And it was very good, as it was constantly said in interviews and press rounds and everything. It was very good if you were a first-time viewer, and I really hope that more and more people do get into it, and then we finally get the sort of numbers we had when David Tennant was in Doctor Who again, because, you know, I need something to spend my money on. My student debt is crippling, so I need a ray of sunshine somewhere. So item number 1 on the agenda is obviously going to be, let's talk about New Doctor. I don't even want to address the controversy, because to be honest, there wasn't actually as much controversy as people were, like, showing on, well, there wasn't as much controversy as there were, like, articles that were being written about somebody who got, like, 3 likes on Twitter who doesn't like it, and then the majority of the people are actually really interested in this new way of introducing a Doctor and of making the show more about its core values, etc, etc, etc. But the thing is, it didn't really come up in the episode, and I think that the way that was handled was very true to life. It was very true to what was, again, constantly said in the press junkets, where people don't walk around constantly aware of their gender. If you walk around and you're aware of your gender, it's usually because somebody else points out to you, because you're in a position where you're being... Well, usually if you walk around and somebody points out your gender to you, it's because they have certain stereotypes attached with what people should be, in accordance with what they assume a person's gender should perform as. Whereas this is Doctor Who, and it's completely about the way the character works is that they break down everybody else's preconceived notions of what a person should perform their behaviours as, etc, etc, etc. So it really worked. There was some really good police sirens. I think that there was some really good speech moments where just the way she was speaking, it felt so natural and it felt so true to, like, the heart of the show, and it never felt arrogant. It always felt very heartwarming and true, and it felt original as well. A lot of the time, I think, especially in the past couple of years, the speeches that, say, Peter Capaldi was giving could have been given by David Tennant, and you were kind of like, yeah, well, I know that bit. Especially if it was an episode where the emotional impact hadn't been brought up. The emotional impact wasn't enough because it hadn't, the seeds hadn't been planted enough in the story for you to then have the reaction to that sort of speech that you were so used to getting from just the better written era. And so when she, especially in the scene where she's facing off the alien against the on the crane, and she talks about, like, decency and humanity and kindness, and it was very true, and it was also very meta, like the part where she says we must embrace change, we must embrace just the diversity of humanity or something like that, and it was all very much like, yes, I saw you there, but it still felt like something you would say in that moment. It still felt real. It didn't feel like it was something that was, like, trying to be quoted, even though I've already seen it quoted on social media, and it will be quoted for, weeks and weeks to come, but it didn't feel fake and it didn't feel inauthentic. And yeah, and also I just think, this was, like, point number 2, I just think the way the story flowed was very natural and was very... It had... The main thing I picked up on, actually, is because I know Christian wrote Broadchurch, which is a detective series. It felt very much like a detective story in the sense that there were clues and then the main sort of cast has to figure out these clues in order to get to a solution, rather than there being lots of major plot twists in the middle, which I think, again, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, like there were loads of Moffat episodes that I did love, but that was kind of a key thing. It happened a lot in his era, and especially everyone is comparing this episode to 11th Hour as like the best way to introduce a new Doctor. 11th Hour is a great episode, but the conclusion of that episode is kind of just the Doctor sort of says, I'm great, and then the aliens leave, and that kind of happened slightly too often during that time period, especially with Matt Smith, and that is why like he's kind of like my least favourite Doctor. It's just, like, not even Colin Baker played a Doctor that was so arrogant that he'd literally just say to aliens, fuck off, and they'd leave, so I never really enjoyed that, so I really enjoyed the way that just the story moved, and I really like the fact that we, like, even though we did have like I think a 5-10 minute bit at the beginning where we sort of introduced all the new characters, we got them together quite quickly. We didn't have like Yaz's storyline over here and Graham's storyline over here, and then we had them all finding me, and it was also like, oh. We got them together quite quickly, we got to see them work as a team quite quickly, and yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the fact that we had like full character arcs, especially for Ryan and Graham. I feel like Yaz just needed like one more little like revelation to get from point A to point B, but I'm sure that we will have like a more gradual story arc for her later in the story. The things I really enjoyed, well, I really enjoyed the supporting cast, like I said. I really think that they just had very natural chemistry. Nothing amongst them felt forced, like the fact that Yasmin and Ryan are friends from when they were younger, like that didn't feel like there were a moment where they would like check each other out, or like it felt quite natural as to how you meet people in real life, you know. All of that just worked really, really well. And yeah, there were a good couple of laughs. I could have done with some more, but again, like the comedy, I like the fact that the comedy wasn't one-liners. It was I'm trying to find a better word for it than British. It was a very British comedy in that there were like funny things just about people being a bit dumb, like somebody throwing like vegetables, an alien, which is absolutely what I would do given the circumstances. Also, I thought they had a very good supporting cast, and I think that's quite important for like a good Doctor Who episode. Last year they played Doctor Who on Twitch, and I was watching it by myself anyway. But one of the things I found really annoying about a lot of the past Doctor Who episodes is that you sort of have to spend a lot of time with like the natives and like the people that are already there, and just sort of like you're looking at your watch like, okay, which of you is gonna die, when is the Doctor gonna show up, and when can I have some fun? Whereas I feel like when we got into the new era, partially because like we didn't have to fill up so much time with the locals, we had one-off characters that were really memorable, and pretty much every episode, well not every episode, but most of the episodes, especially in the Rusty Davies era, you really got attached to the people who are only going to be there for one episode. I think that's like proper storytelling, that's proper drama, in that you can like somebody just because he's listening to self-help on his phone. And so, yeah. Oh, I love the bit. I love the fact that like it's a callback to David Tennant where he always says that everybody's important. And then we had, I think that's the first time we've actually had a human say, yes, I am important, because he's been listening to a self-help podcast, which are brilliant. My camera light's flashing, but I'm just going to keep talking until it dies, and then I'm going to charge it again. What are the other things I really enjoyed? I really enjoyed the music. I really enjoyed the fact that it wasn't too loud, because I have been rewatching a lot of Doctor Who in preparation for this episode, and I love Murray Gold's soundtracks. They make me feel things that no other soundtrack ever can. But sometimes the sound editing in some episodes are just like, wait, what did that character say? What's happening? I'm a bit, can you talk up a bit? And so that does detract from the drama, and especially when you get a big orchestral soundtrack and you don't feel the moment warrants it. And so because this is a pilot, it is a bit like, you know, there's more things to come. But like the really epic moments are, you know, hopefully going to be in the finales. So I think that's going to be the bit where we get the proper like bombastic music. I like the fact that they were northern. I'm not northern, as you can probably tell, but I live in Manchester and my family's from the north. And so just the sort of northern energy I'm related to, even if I don't actually myself have it. Grace is a character. I loved her. I feel like her sort of northern grandma can-do attitude is very much like my northern grandma can-do attitude. My battery died when I was filming the first half of this, and it was taking absolutely ages to recharge, and I had school on Monday, I had uni on Monday, and so I couldn't really stay up till like 2-3 o'clock in the morning trying to film a kind of bad review about Doctor Who. As a continuation of the first part, I think I covered pretty much everything I would like to say that I enjoyed about the episode. I think I'm going to quickly mention the alien. Like, I did like the alien. It was a very simple concept though, and the way that it got tied together at the end. I don't think we need a like brilliant concept alien for a first episode, because we need to have something that can be easily overcome so that the majority of the story is not about the villain, it's about the characters and about how they interact, etc, etc, etc. I think having a day in hindsight, like, the more I think about it, the more I enjoy it. Like, I don't think anybody looks to the Great Alien, they look at the Autons and they look at the Dune and they look at all these other creatures that were put in the first episode. The only, I think, really memorable one I could think of that was used to introduce a companion would be the puddle from the pilot, and that's only because that puddle is like a recurring character, because that puddle holds important significance for the character. I don't think this episode needed that, because we did have a lot of like important significance for each character, and so that's my final sort of not like quite good, not quite bad sort of thoughts on that before I go into the things that I specifically didn't like. First thing I would say that I didn't like was the fact that there was no title sequence, because I would understand if there was no place to put the title sequence. There was such an obvious place to put the title sequence, which is when the Doctor like suddenly collapses into the train, or when the thing, the blue Hershey's Kiss thing, suddenly arrives, and after Ryan has been like walking towards all the windows in the sky. Like, there were all these perfect opportunities just to have the title sequence, and instead what we had like a little bit of like hints of what the theme will be. But I really think that it could have benefited from having a title sequence. I think having the first title sequence of a series of a new Doctor always gives you chills, and it probably won't give me as many chills next episode to see the big names, Jodie Whittaker, Mandip Gill, yada yada yada, because it's just going to be slightly too late, because we've already met these characters. We want the first big title sequence to be when we're being introduced to them, and not when we've already been introduced to them. That explains itself, but yeah. The other thing I didn't like, there was another like editing thing, is when at the end of the episode, instead of like giving like a next time like series trailer, they just give a list of faces, which honestly I just think, number one, most people don't know who most of those actors are. Like, the only two that I personally recognise were Lee Mack and Alan Cumming, and so me and my friend like cheered when they came on screen, but we could have still gotten that cheer if we just had like a cut to scene of like Lee Mack just saying hello or something, like something basic like that. I'd say, like, I don't really understand why they haven't done the trailers they used to give after the Christmas specials, which was like a little trailer of what's going to happen in season to come, like a flash from each episode. I think the ideal version of that trailer would be like the trailer for season 2, the trailer for, or one of the David Tennant trailers. Like those are perfect trailers with that score. What is it, of All the Monsters in the Land by Murray Gold? Like, and also, yeah, that also is another excuse not to show us that much of the music that they're doing now this season. Like, I think I said earlier, I do really like the fact that the music is toned down this season and that it's not as orchestral, because sometimes like you cannot hear what is going on. But yeah, I just think I don't understand why you wouldn't do that mini trailer, because like secrecy is only going to get you so far. I think at this point, once it's come out, there's no point. Obviously, you want to keep like the finale a secret, but I don't really see I don't really see why you wouldn't just give like another little series trailer if you were going to do something like that. But I did like the trailer for episode 2, so I just don't think we needed both of them. I don't think we needed both of them is the issue, really. Well, one of the issues I had early on, it didn't last for very long, so it was alright, but they had too much expositionary dialogue, which is one of those big writing no-nos. You show, you don't tell. It's not like, I don't want this era of Doctor Who to be like the 100, which, I love that show, but every time the character comes on, they're like, well, I think this is a genuine quote from last season. It was like, a character walked on it and their friend was sort of like, well, if it isn't my favourite mass murderer who killed all these 7 people, like, nobody actually speaks like that in a genuine conversation. And so I think like there were some moments, like it was like when they're teaching Ryan to ride a bike, and then Ryan says, then the grandmother, did you hear this? And the grandmother says, you need to ride towards your granddad, and he says, step granddad. I mean, like, that's obvious, because like that's just obvious, because quite frankly Graham's skin tone doesn't match Ryan's, and if he's calling him Graham anyway, you don't call your grandparents by their first name. I mean, maybe that just occurs in the script because they didn't write the ethnicities of characters in, or because they sort of thought it'd be fun. Like some people maybe do call their grandparents by their first name, but why would you call only one of your grandparents by your first name? I don't really understand that. Again, it wasn't too bad though, because it wasn't like they said. Well, it wasn't like they introduced Ryan and they said, oh, he's got dyspraxia. Like, they were showing that issue by having him riding the bike. And to put it into another thing that I like, actually, one of the things that I read online from somebody that does have dyspraxia, is they said that they didn't turn his condition into something that he overcomes and is then inspirational. It's just something that he lives with. And I think that's something that, I'm personally epileptic, so it's something that I think is very true to life, is that a lot of the time, the only representation you get of somebody with any form of disability is them overcoming it and them being normalised again, and not just the fact that people live with this stuff, and the fact that actually it sucks to live with things like that a lot of the time. And a lot of the time I feel like people have to hide how much like having an illness just is so annoying and frustrating and hard, because you feel like you're not allowed to say how hard something is, because then you will immediately get shown as being a victim. And so I like the fact that it's something that he lives with, and it's not an inspirational story, and it'll probably be, I think that it will probably be explored more later on in the series, which I'm looking forward to. And then I think I'm going to go to the last thing that I didn't like, which was the death of Grace at the end. Yeah. I mean, number one, it's fridging. I don't see why we have to kill her off so that Graham and Ryan can get on. Quite frankly, in real life, like, men do that a lot. Not just men. People do that a lot. Like, they don't get on. At the end of the day, what you have to think of is you have to think, if we have somebody that we love in common, you have to just get over yourself, and you have to just be like, well, they're not actually, like, a threat to me, they're not hurting me, they're, like, a decent person, and this person that I love also loves them, so it's clearly something to them. Like, that should be... That's almost, I think, that's like a better storyline, because that's more true to life. That's more adult, and that's harder to deal with, is the fact that you actually just have to get over yourself sometimes. And you just have to, live with people that you don't like, because sometimes your grandma marries somebody that you don't like that much, but, is still a decent person, and is still clearly, will have goodness in him, because otherwise he wouldn't be a companion. So... yeah. Also, narratively, I don't think it was necessary, because if we were going with the fridging storyline and we were going to go for her being killed off means they won't travel in the TARDIS, in her memory, that's not necessary because they get kidnapped at the end. And so, I just really don't think it was necessary at all. And also, she's such a likeable character. I was really glad that we're going back to having a domestic setting at the heart of the story. Lots of people say it's too soapy, and I think it's what makes it real. I think that if you were travelling in time and space, you wouldn't just forget your family. Like, I feel like there was such a like bad line drawn, because there was the Rusty Davies era where it was very heavily family centric, too much for some people. But I think it's a good way to come back into the real world, because we do have episodes set on Earth occasionally. And then the opposite side we have Stephen Moffat, in which the characters kind of have absolutely no family because they're a plot device, really. And so I did quite like that with Bill. Like, we kind of had like a little easing in, and it wasn't necessarily a conventional family, because she had her foster mother, who wasn't a very big character, but then she also had all her flatmates. And honestly, I do really wish Bill had stayed for another season. She was such an interesting character. But just having flatmates, just having somebody like that, like, unless you're going to go with the angle but you're writing another character who's really, really isolated and that's why they're attracted to the relationship with the Doctor. If you're not writing a character like that, then people have people that they care about, and it's not just, like in Clara's case, it's not just your boyfriend. There's, like, her dad just up and disappeared after a couple of episodes. Like, she fucking died and he didn't even know. Like, it was ridiculous. But, anyway, the tangent aside about, like, this mode of storytelling, I really don't think it was necessary to kill her off, just for the story, as much as also, like, she's a likeable character, but just in terms of what Christian was trying to do with the story. Like, I do think he's going to have a moment where, like, in this second episode, where the Doctor says, will you travel with me? Like, I know I accidentally killed you, but will you actually travel with me? Because of that part in the trailer where she says, will you be my new best friends? People constantly talking about, because that's, like, we're reframing, we're doing the companions. So, I just don't think it was necessary, and you don't want a sexist trope being used in the first season of Doctor Who with a female Doctor, do you? You just don't want that, and especially because so much of all the other imagery was so aware the fact that it's first female Doctor, and it was like subtly weaving through like references to just like feminist fiction, like the fact that a lot of the story is based around like women being go-getters, and Yaz being a go-getter, and the Doctor being a go-getter, and the grandma being a go-getter, and the other, like, you know, Ryan is definitely somebody who is attracted to danger, but a lot of the time they are sort of following those characters, and especially, like, one of the lines I really liked was when she goes, if something, the Doctor is about to jump onto that thing, just, if something needs doing, you know, I'll do it myself, or something along those lines, which is like sort of quite a common and quite a northern grandma-ish turn phrase. I also just love the image of her jumping from crane to crane, because my flatmate's laughing, because it was cool and it was empowering and it reminded me of Wonder Woman, which again is in this tradition that is being built, that is, you know, just showing complex female characters, because as Jodie herself would say, women are not a genre. I'm getting away from myself. Oh yeah, we don't want like lazy, uninspired sexist storytelling in the first season of Doctor Who with a female character. With a female Doctor, sorry. But, like, in general, I would say it was just a really good episode. I'd rate it 8 out of 10. I'm gonna watch it again, because I used to watch it back in the day when Doctor Who was at its prime. You'd watch it on Saturday night, and then you'd watch it again on Sunday night, because you'd watch Doctor Who, then you'd watch Confidential, and then they repeat it on Sunday night at 7 o'clock, then you'd watch Doctor Who again, and then you'd watch 10 minutes of Confidential cut down on BBC Three. I'm going to do some more of these, so like, subscribe and comment please. Goodbye.